So it's time to leave the waking world behind and enter the nightmare realm of Fatal Frame 3 yet again. So, as we head into hour 11, we find ourselves back in control of Miku, where we last left her. She had managed to raise that hanging cell up to a upper level, and I guess that's where we need to head next. The problem is currently, we have no real idea of how to get there. So I guess we have no other thing to do than to just press forward and see if we can't find some clues. The good news is that the game is pretty prompt in giving us some hints as to where we need to head. First in the form of this vanishing ghost, who I think is the folklorist. But in addition to that, we can hear something is causing our camera to react, which actually reminds me there's been something I've accidentally been leaving on for the camera that I haven't been meaning to, and it's a very special piece of equipment that you get after doing some pretty difficult things in the game. And that is the infinite equipment. This means that I have not really been expending any film, and, well, I completely didn't notice. But we don't need to make the game any easier than it already is for my amazing skill. But yeah. There is something waiting for us behind that bookshelf that Kay had moved earlier. You might recall he did manage to find a key, but there was something missing before. And it's still missing now, but if we take a picture, we can see a location we've been previously that we need to head back to. Now, the bad news is that, well, as you probably saw before, that candle is still there, so we have to still deal with that miasma and that stupid candle timer. Not to mention, there is not really anything that happens between here and there, so I'm just going to do a quick edit. As we do head closer, we can tell that we are on the right track as we hear that grisly lullaby echoing through the tall tower here. Also, in addition to that, I just love the overall visuals of seeing Miku in a Fatal Frame 2 location. Something I don't think any of us ever expected to see. Not to mention, you are probably noticing Miku's new outfit. This was her outfit from Fatal Frame 1. And if I recall correctly, oh, one second. I have a little bit of an annoyance to deal with. At this point, though, we have fought these Shrine Maidens many times over, and they don't get any new abilities. And as I probably mentioned before, the double shot is extremely useful and extremely powerful. But yeah, Miku's outfit from Fatal Frame 1, I think, is obtained by beating the game on hard, but I might be wrong on that end. It's kind of hard to remember. I think Both Miku and Rei have up to 5 different outfits. I will be trying to show all of them off at some point.
Help me.
But we find Amane hiding in the same spot as we found her as Kei. This time around, though, she leaves something different for us other than the purifying candle. And it's a bizarre-looking book. Looks fairly old. Inside, we find what appears to be instructions regarding what to do with the tattooed priestess. What is most important here is this information about the mirror and the piercing of the soul and, well, this whole rite of commandment, which I guess is this book, and performing whatever rites are waiting inside the book here. Also, there seems to be a lot of names written in this tome, probably from all the previous tattooed priestesses. But along with that, we do find a purifying candle to replace the one that we have almost lost. But with that out of the way, we do have to make another long backtrack all the way back to where we need to place the book in that upper level. This does kind of point out some of the more annoying backtracking the game has in store. The good news is, as long as you have a clear idea of where to go, it's not too much of a hassle, at least in terms of just sheer making your way around. But there are additional dangers that come whenever you have to backtrack. In this case, the danger is a visit from the Kusabi. Incredibly damaging encounter with the Kusabi, in fact, but the good news is that once you enter the basement area here, he does stop entirely, so not the most dangerous encounter depending on how you decide to exit that room, but wow, he took off over half of our life. That is a lot more damaging than I remember. The good news is that there are plenty of little stores of herbal medicine waiting around, so it's not like we're going to be in too much danger, but well, there's going to be nothing going on, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip back yet again to where we need to place that book. And for no logical reason, placing that commandment tome causes something above us to unlock. And even though we haven't visited upstairs here in probably about 7 or 8 updates, we only went up here beforehand to get some Type 90 film as K. This time around, we are going to be continuing back down that very special hallway. First, though, we do want to refill our Purifying Light. Especially for this chapter with all the backtracking, it becomes extremely necessary to know where all these little stores of Purifying Light are waiting. Just another quick visit from the engraver in this creepy setting. Though she won't just leave us alone and allow us to continue without a little bit of a fight. Still, as we are playing as Miku, it's honestly a very one-sided fight, especially if you keep in mind the fact that you can easily phase through pretty much all of her attacks. But with that out of the way, let's see what we have unlocked. Why, it's that hanging prison that we raised earlier. The only problem is that whomever that was inside of the cage is nowhere to be seen. Whether they were dragged off somewhere or maybe they just never existed, it's a bit hard to say, but it does look like there's an item waiting inside for us. And it is a very, very important item. It's the aforementioned Mirror of Loss. Yeah, it's a key component in the ritual for the Tattooed Priestess. And speaking of Tattooed Priestess, what else we find is a diary entry from Reika, the Tattooed Priestess herself. Here she goes in a little bit about just where she came from and why she is so tormented. It seems that some horrible disaster befell her village, killing all of her family. Thankfully, Kaname was not in the village at the time. He was off learning about folklore and urban legends, so he was saved, but in her torment, she decided to leave the village and instead go live at the Kusei Shrine to be a tattooed priestess and suffer for the people.
Inside the shrine.
Definitely makes it seem like she was possibly manipulated into coming to the shrine and kind of having to deal with her own guilt and regret. But with that Mirror of Loss, we now have a key to somewhere else that was previously locked in the game. And the good news is we have a bit of a shortcut to get back to there, as we are now back in the kimono room of the woman brushing.
Amane.
Also, I do enjoy the fact that each one of those handmaidens do have their individual personalities. That one especially is being described as feeling quite guilty for having to kill Amane. But yeah, if you recall in the previous chapter, when we were playing as Kay, he did manage to find himself inside of where I guess they tattooed the Tattooed Priestess. The problem was that there was a bizarre-looking altar which seemed to be missing a plate-like object, and, well, that is where the Mirror of Loss goes. So that is where we are going to be heading next. Though there is something to take heed of as you head into the garden here. Now, you have an opportunity here to take a picture of two of the handmaidens, but if you have been paying attention, there were 4 total, and if you wait around just a little bit and move around the outside perimeter, the other 2 will pop up. And each one of those, all 4, are all individual entries into the spirit list, so it is very important to take a picture of all of those, though it does make me wonder why they were all just staring so intently at this sacrificial tree. But as we head towards the shrine, there is one additional thing waiting for us over in the wings over here, and it is a hidden ghost, but a very special hidden ghost, in that this is the hidden ghost for Kaname himself. Probably waiting for a key opportunity to slink further into the shrine to see Reika. Well, we don't have too much time to linger on that. We are definitely running out of time with that candle.
How could you lead a man to
But before we can place the Mirror of Loss, we do have another encounter with the Kusei family head. Now, in this encounter, she does have one additional attack, which I will be showing off in a later update, but well, for right now, we really don't have time to mess around with her. Just gotta wait for that fatal frame opportunity and completely annihilate her health. But before we place that mirror, we want to go ahead and rush up the ladders here. You might recall from the last update, we do know there is a Purifying Light waiting for us up here, along with a stone mirror and some sacred water if we needed it, but considering we are the all-powerful Miku, we have absolutely nothing to worry about. Unless, of course, we get overwhelmed by the miasma, then we definitely have a lot to worry about. Also, I can't really overstate the fact that I have been running from point to point and not really wasting a lot of time, and even still just barely making it in time to refill these candles, so they are pretty strict, especially later on in the game here, just about how much leeway you're given to find these candles before you're overwhelmed by that miasma. But we can go ahead and place the mirror here, which I guess will continue the ritual. Guess this was where the tattooed priestess was supposed to enshrine all of her love and affection to be shattered and given away so that she had nothing weighing her down in the real world. And to go along with that idea, as she left behind those feelings and emotions, it paved the way for her to be allowed access behind this bamboo screen, where, well, she would be surrounded by engravers and tattooed with that horrible ink of the dead. And even still, Miku can see traces of that red and purple ink of blood and despair. But in addition to that, there is some Type 90 film waiting here for us to pick up. But we have really no other choice at this point than to press forward and see what's waiting for us further into the shrine. We've already gotten the idea that the Kuze Shrine is pretty expansive, in addition to the fact that, we're dealing with a very dreamlike world, but it's really hard to get across just how big the Kuze Shrine is.
No one will survive. No one.
Especially as we head into a brand new, dreamlike area. I want to say that this is some bending of reality, but I also want to say that this was actually a place in the Kuze Shrine. Some horrible abyss leading further and further down. I do love the overall aesthetics though, especially, I don't know, those almost look like Shinto gates popping out of the walls there, but horribly warped as we make our way further and further down. The good news is, I think at this point, since we are in something of a miasma, we don't really have to worry about the candle anymore, so we're not under any real time constraints, but I could swear it looks like there's someone waiting down there at the bottom of this abyss. Maybe it's that person that we saw in the cage before. Let me just zoom in a bit using a special feature, but still not a really clear view of it. Guess we have really no other choice than to just continue on and see if we can't get a better view.
You can't escape money. I'll never escape from here. The master is. I won't let you. Have to do this.
So we finally find Amane's final resting spot. The area where she was impaled by her friends, her supposed family, all for letting her poor brother, or half-brother I should say, see Reiko one last time. We also get a very possibly difficult ghost encounter here, where we have to fight all 3 of the remaining shrine mains at once. And especially if you have been burning through Miku's slowdown, this can be a pretty difficult fight altogether. I mean, fighting 2 was hard enough, but fighting 3, pretty much a nightmare. Good news is, I have been conserving my film and my slowdown quite a bit, though honestly, they can still get you by surprise even when you are trying to pay attention. But just store up that double shot, and all in all, they can be pretty easy to deal with. Still, though, this is a extremely grisly scene. Her bloodied stake remains forever trapped down here in this horrible abyss. And she never did anything. She only wanted to help in whatever little way she could. And sadly, there's nothing we can do for her at this point. Really, there's barely we can even do for ourselves.
I've wanted to see you for so long, brother. Brother?
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 Mafuyu,
Don't go
don't go
that way.
any further. I'm sorry. I left you behind. All alone. I'll go there. With you.
Those are pretty terrifying words to hear from Miku. It almost sounded like she was giving up.
Miku? going to die. Now I understand. These tattoos are my punishment for living. For living on. For surviving that day. Ever since I was a child, I've been able to see things other people can't. My brother was the only one who understood me. That's why I know. I know that we're going to die.
Miku. Oh, Miku. We can get through this thing together. Everything's gonna be okay. Just remember, you are not alone.
Thank you.
So things take a turn for the even more bleaker, as hollow words rain from Ray's mouth to poor Miku, who, even though she says she's alright, I definitely get the feeling that it's all just as hollow as Ray's words. And was Ray trying to convince Miku or herself that everything's going to be alright, that she isn't alone? Well, we can't really do anything for Miku here. All we can do is try to get to sleep and maybe wake up better in the morning.
Please, you tell me. Am I really supposed to be alive? Not this dream again. I don't want it anymore.
It seems, though, that Miko's torment for the night isn't over just yet. She finds herself back in that centralized area of horror that she faced beforehand in Himuro Mansion. And really, there's just no other way to describe this than just heading towards the inevitable. She knows where this journey is going to take her. She knows where the Manor of Sleep is leading her. And really, there's no other choice for her to go. She's having to relive this horrible torment. She's having to deal with this inescapable guilt, and I don't know, it almost seems like maybe Mafuyo is leading her further and further towards himself in the land of the dead. Really, though, should Miku feel guilty? I mean, Mafuyo was the one that told her to run, and he did it out of his own love and understanding of what Kyrie was having to go through. I mean, overall, is this just the Manor of Sleep warping poor Miku's feelings. But we have another encounter with the warped version of the Rope Shrine Maiden. Nothing too new here. She fights exactly the same as before, but this time around we do have our powered up double shot, and we have a lot of slowdown ability to make this fight a lot easier. But is this really something that we can overcome with sheer physical strength? Or is this a journey that requires something just a little bit more than brute force alone? Well, I suppose we could try to run away, but I don't think that would be solving anything. Really, I think the best course of action here is to try to follow Mafuya and see if we can't maybe find the end to this horrible, horrible nightmare.
Brother. Mafuyu.
Miku! Miku! Don't follow
We
him!
all die eventually, but I never
If
really
you
thought
follow the
about that
dead,
until
you
now.
can't come back!
I realized my
Easier
true
to go to the other
feelings
side, but don't give up!
when I saw the
You
man
can't
with
give
my
up!
dad.
He's already dead. You're a stronger person than I am. You always
I
encourage and
want to
comfort
be
me.
with my brother.
I feel that being around
I
you
just
has made me
want to
stronger.
see him one more time.
Please, Miku, go! I wanted to be with you. Miku, don't leave me behind. Don't go.
Just once more. If only. Just once more.
Miku.
How long has it been?
I can't take any more. Are we going to die?
Ray, there might still be some hope.
Hope. It seems like such a faraway idea now that Miku is in a coma, and there's nothing we could do to stop it. Even if we didn't follow Mafuya, she would still be doomed to suffer in that coma, and in a few days probably be sucked off into a sooty otherworldly area. But I guess if it's some consolation, we do finally get to meet Kay face to face, and he does give us some measure of hope, even though it's definitely not to be found in this commandment tome. Now, we've already read this. It's the exact same thing that we just found in Miku's dream. But it does give Kay something of an idea as to maybe some way to combat this Manor of Sleep and the rift that seems to be encroaching on all of us. He gets the somewhat bizarre idea that, well, maybe if we finish the ritual and put this sleeping priestess to rest, maybe all this will finally go away. And as such, he does go into a little bit more information from Akito himself in regards to that song we have heard so many times before. It goes over just the different verses and a lot of information we already know, such as pretty much the song is about death. The sacred marks are probably the tattoos on the priestess. But it's this mention of the sea. Well, maybe the sea means something other than that. Maybe it means the other world, or the hellish land of the dead that we have managed to close off so many times before. And finally, we get a little bit more information about just what might be lying underneath the Kuze shrine in regards to this shore and the quote-unquote other shore. But really, all in all, it's a lot of information we have already gathered. What is most important is this mention of stakes, which we heard of before. But it does give Kay that, as previously mentioned, idea. Well, maybe if we find these stakes, we can impale the priestess, and we can finally subdue her, and maybe cause this rift to stop encroaching into all of our dreams, and inevitably leading us to be spirited away to be forever tormented in that manner of sleep. Honestly, it sounds like a crazy idea, but at this point we don't really have any other options. We don't really have any other venues to go towards, so I guess that's just what we're gonna have to do. Also, he mentions that you had another cassette tape, possibly with more information about that lullaby we've heard so much about. So we are going to go ahead and up to his room to search for that, but before that, if you did manage to take a picture of Mio and Mayu beforehand, you can get a little bit more information about them from Kay. Overall, though, it's not really any new information from those that played Fatal Frame 2, just talks about Mayu and Mio's extremely close, awkward relationship, especially after Mayu managed to cripple herself by falling down a hill, and how Miu felt very responsible, and that's inevitably what led to all of her guilt, especially after, well, strangling her sister and making her turn into a butterfly. It does show that in the end, this is really what's been driving Kay throughout the game, and, well, as we see from his final remark, he is not willing to give up the fight just yet. Still, though, he's not really a good replacement, in my opinion, for Miku, and God, I just honestly can't believe what happened to Miku. I mean, she's not really dead, but she's not really alive anymore, is she? About the best we can do is maybe try to keep ourselves alive somehow. But upstairs on used desks, we do manage to find that tape that Kay mentioned downstairs. And along with that tape, we do find another notebook with some repeated information. Overall, just goes in, yet again, more information regarding the lullaby and the Sleeping Priestess, and how maybe people have been taking the meaning incorrectly, and that this mysterious third verse that was kind of lost to time is actually the real meaning behind the song, and that it's less of a lullaby and more of a funeral dirge. Still, though, not a whole lot of new information here. Really, might just be the game trying to cover you up on information that you might have missed had you not been picking up all the other many files and notebooks scattered throughout the game. Honestly, it's kind of hard to believe that there's probably about 50 or 60 plus pages of information stored away in this game. But we can go ahead and give Kay that cassette tape we found. Hopefully he can get it working so we can listen to it later on. But that does cause the next night to trigger. And normally I would go ahead and call it an update, but there is something causing my ghost sense to tingle downstairs. And I think some of you might consider it a pretty welcome visitor, especially after all the sadness and torment we've had to deal in this particular update. I will say, though, that this ghost can be pretty easy to miss. But as you pass by the altar room, stroller grandma! Oh, that lovable old woman. But along with stroller grandma, I do feel like I owe some apology to poor Rory here. Sorry I wasn't able to save Miku. I don't know. I guess it's just you and me now, kitty. But with that, well, we don't have any film to develop, and well, considering we only really developed film to give to Miku, I don't really see much of a point in that anymore. Really, just looking at Ray's face earlier, and kinda seems like she might have already lost the fight internally. I don't know. Hopefully things will brighten up next time. Hopefully you will join me then as we head back into the Nightmare Realm next time on Fatal Frame 3.